And we want to continue this conversation with Kelly Thompson. She's a retired logistics captain in the Canadian Armed Forces. After she left the military, she wrote a book about her time in the forces. It's called Girls Need Not Apply. She joins us from North Bay tonight. Hi, Kelly. Thanks for taking the time to speak with us.
Thanks for having me.
So what went through your mind when you heard about these allegations against Admiral McDonald, coming just a month after he replaced General Vance, who was also the subject of an investigation?
I'd love to say I'm surprised, and sadly, there's a part of me that's not in direct relation to Admiral McDonald. I don't know about that situation. But I mean in terms of the fact that it keeps happening is a sign that we have this systemic problem that the military needs to address further.
So do you take this case as, is it the forces maybe are finally starting to take allegations seriously and that's why they're coming out now? Or is this highlighting something that is so prevalent that it was only a matter of time until it reached these higher ranks?
I think we're finally starting to see, the Me Too movement, we're starting to see this increase of people feeling safe and comfortable coming forward. So I think there's been sort of this attitude by some of the people I've heard in the military saying, oh, you can't do anything anymore without getting in trouble. Well, that's not what it's about. It's about acknowledging wrong behavior. It's acknowledging a culture that creates that behavior and perpetuates it. And so the fact that we're starting to see people from the top who are being called out for it, I think that's wonderful. Wonderful in terms of at least it means progress. But I do think that this isn't a one-off, and this isn't a matter of the fact that it's only just coming to light. We've been saying this a long time. It's just not been changing.
And what has been happening for a long time? You've written about what it's like to be a woman in the military. What are some of the things that you experienced and saw firsthand?
I think it was really early on in my career I realized how chronic the sexism and harassment was going to be in my life. One of the very first instances I remembered was being groped on the obstacle course, really inappropriately. I would be spanked and sexualized at all work functions and events. I mean, literally bent over a table and spanked at a work function. Huh. Or having my every promotion, every achievement being, oh, was it because my breasts were big? Was it because I flirted with so-and-so? Was it because I was sleeping with so-and-so?
My goodness.
It was chronic. It was daily. And for a long time, I really felt like I deserved it because I was very girly. So I felt like I wasn't the model of what the military expected of me. And yet at the same time, I had a lot to offer. I had a lot I felt like I was bringing to the table. And yet, unfortunately, my femininity always had to be that part of the criteria, unfortunately.
Oh, go ahead.
And I'm not alone. All that to say, being part of organizations and groups, talking with other women and men, non-binary, trans soldiers, who are living this still. This is not in the past. This is still happening.
So you left the military in 2011, but you are married to a military man who continues to have his career in the armed forces.
Yes.
What's it like when you kind of compare your careers and you watch him now?
Well, we met in basic training, actually, and he carried me for 3 kilometers when I broke my leg. Oh. So we had this really intense bond as friends and then later in our marriage. So at first it was really hard to watch his career soar. My husband's a white man. He's doing very well, and I'm proud of him, but it was really hard to be on the outside of that and also to say, I could have done that. I could have been this if I had been given that opportunity. So it was hard, and I was bitter and depressed, and I really sunk into a chronic depression I still battle today. And so now I think now that I do what I love instead, I'm a little, it's not quite as difficult, but it's also motivating because he comes home and I hear the conversations he's trying to have with his troops as a leader himself. The discussions that they're having, the phrasing they're using, removing gendered language, being more inclusive to people of color, to our Indigenous soldiers, and trying to make that a more welcoming, open space. That starts everywhere. That doesn't just start at leadership. That starts at the very bottom. And so we have to encourage and foster that environment. So for a while it was hard. Now it's wonderful because I see all the change that's starting to happen.
Yeah, and speaking of that change, do you feel like enough is being done in terms of, you know, we hear about Operation Honor. You're talking about, you know, hearing the language that your husband uses, and I wonder if that's specific to his case because he is married to you. Do you feel a shift? Do you feel like there is change? And if not, what will it take to see that change?
Change is definitely happening. I think about when I came out with this book when I was in the military and I was writing initially, it was very much like everyone wanted me to keep quiet. And then this book came out and bases all over Canada have asked me to come speak and talk about what can we do to change? What can we do to be better and support one another? That's exciting to me. That means seeing a problem and wanting to rectify it. But that said, as long as people feel unsafe at work, there's not enough change that's being done. And so I don't feel like we can ask women and some men and our trans and non-binary soldiers to defend themselves while having to defend their country at the same time. It's unrealistic to demand this of them. So we owe it to them to give that safety. So I think we're starting to see instances of that change moving in that direction, but clearly there's still a gigantic problem. And I think it's going to be, sadly, some more time and some more instances of this happening where we start understanding it can't continue and that we have to change the whole environment that we used to think was the old boys club. It can't keep working that way. It's not a boys club anymore.
All right, Kelly Thompson, a retired captain and the author of Girls Need Not Apply. She's in North Bay tonight. Thanks so much for sharing your story.
Thanks for having me.